All right, so we're talking about enmeshment trauma. Now, enmeshment trauma and codependency goes hand in hand, but there's also some subtle differences. For the sake of tonight, we're going to just put them in one box, okay? And we're talking about enmeshment, but codependency very much is woven through enmeshment. And if you have enmeshment trauma, or if your child has enmeshment trauma, then your way of relating will be a codependent style of relationships, okay? In anywhere in life, whether that's you're codependent to your parents, even as an adult, codependent on your partners, friends, whatever it might be. So what does it all mean, and why is this important? I'm just going to talk, you guys, those of you who know me, I get in a bit of a flow, and I'm just going to talk this out in as condensed time frame as I can so we can get to the coaching call. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak this out, and then I'll look at the chat. If you have comments while I'm talking, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm not going to address them while I'm talking, because chances are I might be about to answer your question anyway. And then what I will do is I'll look at the chat before I go to the coaching call, see what the questions are, but we'll probably come back to them depending on what the questions are and how long it's going to take to do that. I may or may not answer those calls, okay, because I want to get to the coaching part of this call, which is the purpose of it. And if this becomes something really big and everyone starts craving it, maybe we'll run a workshop on it or something like that at some point soon, okay? So what is enmeshment, first of all? So enmeshment is essentially no recognition of self within a relationship. There's no autonomy. Autonomy is where you are able to differentiate self from other. Okay. And when you're able to do that, you're able to discover your sense of self separate from anyone else. Okay. So imagine this, and this is where kind of enmeshment can start. And I really want to hone in on this. Enmeshment trauma is almost always done unintentionally, which is what makes it so hard to change. And it's also what makes it so what can I say, destructive in your life. Like the parents who create enmeshment trauma, or who have children who have enmeshment trauma, they've been raised by well-intended parents, but parents that were normally unaware, unawakened, not conscious enough to know that they've been using the child to meet their own needs, okay, their own emotional needs. So here's what happens. I'll give you a few examples and then we'll go into the definition of it. But imagine this. Here's how it can accidentally happen, okay? A well-intended parent. It could be something like, let's say, a baby sitting in a high chair, and, the baby starts saying, like, you're turning its face away, like, I don't want more food. But the parent is like, yes, you do. You need to eat all of this. And they start stuffing it in the baby's mouth, or almost tricking the baby. And like when they turn their head, like finding a way to, put the spoon in and give them another mouthful. So even right there, it's like we're saying, no, you don't know that you're not hungry. You don't know that you're hungry. What you think is true about you is not true about you. I know you better than you know you. And even though you think you're not hungry, I know you're hungry. I'm saying you're hungry, and therefore you need to eat. Okay. That's essentially the subconscious message that is language through the baby. Okay. Another one is, even just parents who live through their children, and they achieve their own life achievements by proxy, in terms of, like pushing children to have careers or sports that give you a status amongst your community or your friends, or something you never had. And it doesn't mean you have to like fully push them. What you, if you've got the courage to really build an awareness around this, notice how sometimes you might go overboard. You might really praise a child, really give them a social recognition within the family, and tell grandma and, tell daddy, and they'll overhear you telling people about, their achievement in, I don't know, let's say, for example, netball, if that was your sport. And so when your child has achievements in that area, it's like you go overboard with giving them the praise for that compared to anything else. You might be doing it unintentionally, but it's something to look at. Another one is like a couple. Now, I'm not going to mention names, but I know somebody quite closely that that has this kind of enmeshment trauma, and that is where let's say there's a couple, and either, let's be stereotypical about it. Let's say the husband is emotionally unavailable or not available, works away, whatever it might be. And so the mother basically makes the child unintentionally, in the name of love, makes the child like a surrogate husband in order to get her emotional needs met. So, to have something that she can love and she can be loved by. Her need is to feel love from something and to be able to offer love to something. And if she can't do it with her husband, she uses the child to get those needs met. And so she leans on the child emotionally, tells them her secrets, calls them my best friend, you're like my bestie. And this literally burdens the child. The child starts feeling responsible for how that parent feels. And it sets them up for a lifelong gaslighting, because it feels wrong to them. There's something that doesn't quite feel right about this, but they're told. It's like they've got no way out of it, right? They enjoy the specialness and the closeness that being in this role guarantees them. They love the feeling of being close to the mum, and playing this role for the mum guarantees the child that feeling of being special and being close. But it comes at a really high price, okay? Because essentially it removes their recognition of self, and they have no healthy autonomy. They have no boundary between what is self and what is other. And we need to be able, ultimately, to have healthy, functioning relationships. We need to be able to have ourselves and have others too at the very same time. We need to have both of us. There can be you in this relationship, and there can be me. And sometimes we can be the same, and sometimes we can be similar in our thoughts and beliefs and desires and, whatever it might be, our feelings. And also within our relationship, it's also perfectly healthy and okay for us to be very different. Now, let's talk about boundaries here, because this is essentially what doesn't exist in an enmeshed relationship. Okay, there is no sense of self. Okay, now most people think of boundaries as as a fence that separates them from the rest of the world. Like, here's the line, here's where I exist, and then it separates me from all of that. But really, it's not. I want you to imagine. I heard this analogy one time, and I loved it. I've remembered it ever since. So, imagine boundaries are more like a definition. So imagine static on a TV, right? We all know that we are all energetic beings. So, the static on a TV is like the sea of energy that we all exist in. Yeah. And so all of a sudden, within the static, imagine that you were able to start to, recognize and see the definition, so that like an image starts to appear within the static. Like there starts to be a bit of that's a boundary, right? Where there's all the static, but within the static, there's like an image starts to appear that separates it from the rest of the field of that static. Right? Does that make sense? You guys with me? Yeah. So that's what a healthy boundary is, that we can all be these vibrational beings, and we can all be together, and we can all be a family. But there's it's like there's a sense of self that's being defined from other. I know where I am, where I end, and where you begin, where you end and where I begin. And boundaries, essentially, I like to say boundaries are what define you relative to everything else, rather than what separate you from everything else. It's my boundaries are, it's like the imaginary lines that defines my thoughts, my feelings, my needs, my desires, my happiness, my personal truth from the rest of the universe, the rest of the world, the rest of, my environment. Okay. This is what defines me as me, separate from you. You with me? Everyone good? Oh, let me just add some more people to this call. They're all sitting in the waiting room. So in an enmeshed relationship, personal boundaries basically don't exist. They're permeable, they're unclear, there's no differentiation between what is you and what is me. You don't know yourself separate from the other, right? You've learned that you've had to become the other. And let me get to that, exactly how this is created and what it means, okay? So essentially, in a mesh relationship, it doesn't recognize boundaries. There's no honoring of let's say in this case, a child's personal thoughts, their personal feelings, their personal experience, their personal wishes. There's no honoring that you can be separate because I need you to be like me or to think like I think or believe what I believe because you're a child, I'm an adult, and I'm relying on you emotionally. So if a child in enmeshment trauma, if a child starts to differentiate themselves from the parent, okay, there's big consequences, because it's either you choose those consequences and essentially allow yourself to be controlled, okay, or you give yourself up. Now, this is ultimately what enmeshment is. It's where you give yourself up in order to have the payoff that comes with enmeshment. So what you get from an enmeshed relationship is an enhanced sense of belonging within the relationship. So meaning that if I learn to think like my mum, to feel like my mum, to like have the same thoughts as her, if I don't have a separate self, if I just learn to either think exactly like her, feel exactly like her, pick up on the vibes of what she's thinking and feeling, and I'll be that too. Or I can either be exactly like you or I be what you need me to be. Yeah. So I can't have my own experience. I need to either be you and match your experience perfectly. Okay. Otherwise, I get abandoned. I get separated from you, and I don't get to experience the specialness and the closeness. And the only way to get the closeness is to feel how you feel, to think how you think. And essentially, and often unintentionally, we make our children responsible for our emotions. Okay. An example I can give you, and this is, someone in my life that I know well. As an example, again, good intentions, okay? But like, for example, when they see the child after a couple of days, it's like, oh my gosh, I've missed you. Where have you been? Oh my gosh, it's been 3 days. I miss you so much, right? And what that does, well-intended parent, I'm just telling my child I miss them. Doesn't that mean I love them? Aren't I telling them I love them? Isn't that a good thing? Well, for you it is, right? But what that does is it burdens the child to go, oh, you miss me? You're sad when I'm not with you? Oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be away from you then, because I'm responsible for how you feel. And if you say that any time that I'm not with you, that makes you sad because you miss me and it makes it hard for you, then I need to fix that. I need to change my thoughts, my decisions, and it can put them in a very powerless situation where sometimes they can't make those decisions, and then they feel responsible for how you feel. It's also comments that are so common in parenting, like, you made me feel like that. See, gosh, you make me angry. Look how angry you make your dad. Look what you did. Like, it's like you're responsible for your own emotions, right? And so sometimes these can be very unintentional. Other times, just by a little bit of awareness, we can change the whole entire thing. Here's the thing, right? Children are born with autonomous selves, right? They are like, we're all born with our own free will, right? We are born screaming and demanding for everything that we want, everything that we need. And, and we basically get that beaten out of us by society, who says in order to be a good child, you need to be compliant and obedient. And if you're not compliant and obedient, then I need to change you. This is the next thing with enmeshment, that it's a style of relating, okay? And it's always learned in childhood. It always comes from childhood, okay? Enmeshed parents feel, and this might be a trigger for some of you, sit with it if it is, okay? If you feel like your child belongs to you, like they're mine, like they're some piece of clay that I get to mold the way I want it, and that was my vision of parenting, that I could create this being that would give me everything I'd never have, which was unconditional love, and then it could be someone that I could love unconditionally that would never abandon me because they would need me. They would be dependent on me. And so this is how I use the child to get my own needs met, even accidentally. And then what happens is the child turns up at 2 years old, starting to discover myself separate from you, my feelings separate from mum's feelings and from the dog's feelings and from my sister's feelings. And I start saying no. And I start arguing, or I start defying, or I start even looking at you because I'm about to touch something that I know that you tell me not to touch. And I'm just working out, do I have to be you, or can I be me separate from you? And even though you tell me not to do it, I still actually can. I can choose to do it. You're trying to train me not to. Maybe it is in my best interest because the stove is hot and I'll burn myself. But other times, parents who believe their children are theirs, like it's a thing, it's a belonging, it's like an item that you own, kind of a thing. When you have that idea on your parenting, you're pretty much always going to create some kind of codependent child. Here's where that damages their life, okay? It basically becomes an act of gaslighting, unintentionally. You didn't mean to gaslight your child their entire lives. I literally worked with an amazing young girl 2 years ago, almost, who had, a history in her life. She was 22 at the time I worked with her. We did some private coaching, and she had a history of anorexia and bulimia. And it was amazing to work with a conscious family through this, because all eating disorders come from gaslight. And so gaslighting doesn't always create an eating disorder, but an eating disorder always relates to being gaslit. And this is the thing, right? I remember speaking to her mum, having a real candid conversation, saying, hey, if you want me to work with your daughter, I'm going to have to be real. And some of these things are probably going to hurt your feelings, because I know that you raised your children as consciously as you believed you could. You tried to be positive and tried to do the best thing. But in your intent to be positive, you've denied a child of their own experience, right? So if they come to you with a problem and you turn everything into, oh, it has to be positive and look at the bright side, oh, they probably didn't mean that, maybe it was just the way you took it, and you try to turn everything into a positive, you're denying me of my reality, that it doesn't feel happy and it doesn't feel good. And I don't see a positive here. I'm actually just sad. So essentially what you tell the child is what you feel you don't feel. No, you don't feel that. No, that doesn't hurt. Just see the good side of it. See the happy side. See there's a lesson in this for you. There's growth in this for you. So that's the silver lining. So find where the growth is. Don't dare sit and wallow in what's causing you pain right now. Everything happens for a reason. And when you know the reason for this, you'll see that this was meant to happen. Okay, a well-intended parent, right, who got raised so negatively that wanted to change that blueprint and go, I am not raising my children that way. We're going to flip. We're going to do it positively. But it denied the child of their own personal experience. No, you can't feel that. No, we don't have those feelings in this house. You need to feel what I want you to feel. I'm not comfortable with you feeling that, because when you feel that, it triggers an insecurity in me, and I don't like how I feel. So I'm going to pretend that I love you. I care. You're my child. I'll do anything for you. I just care about your best interest. And so it's okay. It's going to be okay. I will fix it. It's okay. And so essentially, through my act of love for you, or what I believe to be love for you, I'm denying you of your experience. And that makes the child go, okay, so what I think, I shouldn't think. What I feel, I shouldn't feel. What I believe, I shouldn't believe. And anytime I have these experiences that say that my parent is not comfortable with, there's a separation between us. There's a rejection. There's an abandonment. Whether it's, take your negative, attitude and go to your room, and it's an actual physical abandonment, or it's an energetic abandonment. It's like I don't get the same kind of closeness from my mum that I need. Like, we are social beings, right? We literally depend on our social groups for our survival. And so in these situations, a child has one of two choices. And there's consequences either way. But what they do is they abandon their self, they abandon their sense of self in exchange for the closeness with the parent. Because if I don't abandon myself, if I don't remove the part of me that actually feels sad in a family that doesn't like sadness, then I lose what I need for survival. I lose my closeness, my specialness, and my connection. And the only way to get that is to fully forego everything I am. And now I learn to do one of two things. I either learn to think like you, feel like you, be like you, act like you, respond like you, so that I can foster that closeness. Or I learn to think the way you want me to think and do the way you want me to do. And, it might not be exactly what you feel, but it's what you recognize to be valuable. And so I'll sacrifice my sense of self for that, because that's the only way I get closest. Now, here's the thing. These people, and this, might resonate for some of you. I know some of you definitely it's going to resonate for, those of you I know very well. But this then, what happens is the child then becomes an adult who loses themselves in relationships because they've got a codependent. I'm dependent on knowing your thoughts and feelings to know how I think and feel. I don't know what I think and feel unless you're around to let me know what I should think and feel. And so there isn't a sense of self. And so what happens is when you get older, you become an adult who feels like you lose yourself in a relationship, or who needs to be, watch this, right? It's amazing how this can crack your life open if you're ready to hear it. And if this is you. You either feel like you lose yourself in a relationship, like you're consumed by the relationship, like you're invisible in the relationship, because you have enmeshed yourself to be exactly like your partner. You like what they like. They've got an interest in fishing, so you get yourself interested in fishing, for example. Not that they told you needed to. That was what you chose. No one told you needed to be, interested in fishing, but it's just how you've learned to relate. So you feel like you lose yourself, like I don't have a place in this relationship, or you need conflict. You need conflict in order to establish a feeling of self, a sense of self. Because when we're arguing, it's the only time that I feel like I'm somebody separate from you, because I'm opposing what you believe. I'm opposing what you're thinking. I'm opposing your point of view. And that's the only time that I feel like I am my own self, separate from you. And so I find myself in an argument, in conflict. And this is the person that builds addiction to conflict and addiction to, emotional addiction and all those kind of things. If you want to know all about that, actually in the conscious community, join the conscious community. It's $24 a month. It's literally what we're covering in next month's workshop in 2 weeks' time, feelings and emotions. We've got a guest speaker, a chiropractor who specializes in the nervous system, even coming to teach on the physical level, what goes on in the nervous system for all of those, all those emotional patternings. Now, here's the thing. This person feels like they need a relationship. This is the person who jumps from relationship to relationship to can't be outside of a relationship, needs to be in a relationship. They need to be in it, but because they feel like they disappear once they're in it, they're in conflict with themselves, because it's like, I need to be in a relationship, but then I feel consumed by the partner. And so because of that, I'll push you away. Like, I need you, but I'll push you away, because it's the only time you feel a sense of self is when you're alone, when there's no one around to have to think like, be like, feel like, all that kind of stuff. When you need to be alone, you need space all the time. You need to be by yourself all the time, because it's the only place where you can feel that you're free to think what you want to think, feel what you want to feel. The moment another person is within your vicinity of vibration, you've literally attuned your nervous system to tune in. Like, these people become so attuned. They're quite often empaths, or like really energy sensitive beings who have learned, in order to survive, I needed to tune in to what the feeling was, to what the thoughts were, so that I could match them in order to find closeness in the relationship. Okay. Now here's where it can get, let's say, dangerous, or not so dangerous, but people with no sense of self, they'll always gravitate towards people with a very strong sense of self. And that can be one of two things typically happens. You find someone with a healthy, strong sense of self, and, you feel like you lose yourself to that person. Because they know who they are. And so, that's you go in and try to mirror what they are, or you attract someone who's a narcissist, where the expectation of the relationship is that you very well do give yourself up for me. And that feels normal to you because your nervous system has lived like that its whole life. And as much as you might like intellectually know that it's not good and you can see the patterns, like there's a sense of safety about it because familiarity makes us feel safe. Okay. So the whole goal is to have in any relationship dynamic, friendship, intimate relationship, brothers, sisters, whatever, is to have a sense of self and other. And you know, people who have had enmeshment trauma, when they really start embarking on the authenticity journey and the awakening journey, and they start learning who they really are, you quite often realize that the life that you've set up till now isn't your life. None of those are your desires, your beliefs, your thoughts. They're not in alignment with any part of your truth. Your truth has been dissolved in you trying to match the truth of someone else. And so as you start going on the journey, and it's a process, it's a real process. It's, you know, I mean, and I feel like I want to say you may never fully arrive. You've always got to be aware that these are your tendencies, that, you know, part of your karmic journey. It's like you're never completely on the other side and it's a thing in the past and it never shows up anymore. It's that kind of thing where you've always got to have that awareness. And as you start discovering your true sense of self, that comes with consequences too, because quite often you want to change your whole life. And there's other people in your life that suffer the consequences of that as well, because you realize the life you set up wasn't yours. And once you become authentic, that doesn't feel right for you. And now you're learning to move towards what does feel right for you. And it's the opposite to everything you've currently got. And you know, there's big changes on the horizon, and that's doesn't just affect you, it affects everybody. So in relation to your children, I'm going to go to the comments, but in relation to your children, here's how it happens. Like it's allowing them to have a sense of self, to have autonomy. You changing your belief, your story around when my child, you know, says no, that means they're backchatting. That means they're disrespectful. That means they're being defined. Actually, they're practicing a sense of self. And so it doesn't mean that you just let them do it, but the way you approach it, and this is all covered inside the online program, when you get to second and third pillar in particular, there's a lot of language in there. There's actually a video called "Do you want to win at arguing or do you want to win at parenting?" So you'll all get to that video eventually, but if you want to fast forward and go find that video and watch it, it'll give you language to be able to say to your child, you know, I love that you don't take no for an answer. I love that when you know you want something, you don't give up on it. I have heard what you've asked for. My answer is no, it's not going to change. I'm not changing my mind on that. Okay. But I love that you don't give up on the things that you want in life. So you acknowledge and reward the attribute instead of squashing that. If you ask one more time, you're going to cop it. Go on, ask me again. You dare ask me one more time and that's it. Like now you've squashed that autonomy out of them. So there's ways to handle situations where you can still implement practical parenting. Like you need them to get in the car. You know, it's like, and I say no. Okay, the deal is we are getting in the car. It is not a question. We are getting in the car. The choice you have is, are you walking yourself to the car? And if you choose not to, then I will pick you up and I will take you to the car. We need to be in the car in 2 minutes. You choose whether you walk or whether I take you. And so you can be strong with that, but without crushing and completely beating the autonomous self out of them. And you've got to be pretty careful. Conscious parents, do not make your children your best friends. That is not your role. They're going to have friends that can play that role for them. And if you fit that role for them, if you to meet your own need, to feel like you've got a best friend, to feel like your son or your daughter loves you and you get the relationship that you craved from your parent. Just because the relationship that you lacked with your parent, you can't bring that baggage and then use it to meet the need that you never got met because your parent was never close to you, to now go, I'm going to make my child so close to me. Okay, because good intentions, I know you do, but in order for them to meet the needs you have, particularly if they are friendship needs or if they are emotional needs, will you burden them and give them responsibilities that are not fair and that basically make them feel gaslit all their life because something doesn't feel right about it, but then you tell them it's for your best interest. I just love you so much. I'm only ever looking out for your best interest. You know, you need, oh, Mum, I don't want to play soccer anymore. I don't like it. You know what? Discipline's important. You can't let the team down. And, you know, you need to play. How about we go 3 more times and see how, and I'm not saying that it's not important to teach your children commitment, but sometimes you've got to be really aware. Do I want my child to play soccer? Is that where I have connections with my own friends and it feels good to me to hang out with people on Saturday? So if you don't play soccer, what reason will I have to connect with people? Or am I living through you? Or do I feel, you know, have I got my own traumas with regrets of things that I quit in my life that I wish I didn't quit? And I'm projecting that onto my child, going, you can't be a quitter. You can't be a quitter. Not that you're saying these words, but, you know, sometimes the child's like, hey, I want to make a decision for my own life. Like, hello, this is my life. I do not belong to you. I came through you, but I am not yours. I'm not a piece of clay. You don't get to mold me the way you want me. I am my own person. And what you need to do is trust me with my own life and help set me up so that I can create a life that is aligned with who I am authentically, because you've created an environment that has helped me work out exactly that, who I am authentically. Yeah. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to quickly check the chat, see what questions you might have here and how big they are or whatever. And if there's something cool, an enmeshment. I commented my question on an old post. Oh, yeah, sure. Jess, feel free to put it in. And then if I can get to it, I will. All right. But I'm capping the calls no matter what. I'm off at an hour and a half every week. All right. So if ever you ask a question and I don't get to your question, copy and paste it from the post you put it and put it in the group. And, you know, you'll get answers from the entire community. Can enmeshment be just watching and assessing your parents' mood and trying to show up or be? Yes, it absolutely can be. Yes, it can be, Martine, because see, that's a scenario where you had to be what they needed you to be. So if you were like assessing their mood, going, okay, I need to just be quiet tonight. I need to just shut my mouth and keep to myself. That's not your true expression. That was you showing up how they needed you to for their own lack of emotional regulation. And if you didn't do that, if you came in and you were like, oh, hey, Mom, I had a great day. Oh, my gosh, guess what happened at school? And she's in a bad mood. She's like, I don't want to hear it. Just shut up. You always got something to say. Shut your big mouth. Stop talking for once in your life. And then you lose the closeness that you're looking for. So you have to work out to get that closeness, to feel any kind of connection or specialness. Who do you need me to show up as today? And you get around in this hyper-vigilant state of like, this is where people get anxiety. This is where this whole conversation stemmed from with Zita's question last week. And by the way, Zita, thank you for being so open about going that deep with that question and letting me answer you the way I did, and for giving us the follow-ups during the week about how instantly your child who has the label, has, autism, but still immediately had a change and went from not being able to do a karate lesson without coming over to you 10 times during the lesson to instantly being able to do his whole karate lesson and not come to you once. And not only once this week, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think you did it twice this week. You put it up in the group. So, because I said to Zita, hey, I don't think this is anxiety. What you're calling anxiety is actually your child feeling something coming from you going, oh, well, like, I've got my own feeling, but like, I can feel that you don't like my feeling, and like, you're feeling insecure about that, and you're not feeling confident. And so I'm not sure what I should feel. And so they have a meltdown that you think is anxiety, but actually they're feeding off your anxiety about dropping them off at karate or about dropping them off at childcare. Those feelings are yours. Another amazing lady in this group, Alexis, she's very open about discussing, hey, this is what I've got with my child. Literally can't take it, drop him off at childcare because he has huge meltdowns because he's feeding off her nervous energy, walking in to drop him off. The minute he goes with his dad, no problem at all, because there's no emotion placed on him or burden, and there's nothing for him to match. He gets to be his autonomous self. And she's doing amazing work showing up. Do people who are recovering from addiction such as drugs, alcohol, become codependent? That's not necessarily related. Addictions and codependency in relating are two very different things. They might, but they're not. There's not a direct relationship between those things. Can you have enmeshment and codependency, but only sometimes with some people? Yeah, you can, like a spectrum, Martine. And particularly, here's what I'll say with that. An unconscious person will have enmeshment everywhere, and they'll call it love, and they literally, they're beyond people pleasers. They're literally self-sacrifices in order to be kind and to be nice and to be liked and to be accepted, right? To find the closeness that they crave. And if they can't find it, they use the children for it. And so a person who is unconscious, who really has no self-awareness, who isn't willing to sit with, why do I do that? Why do I think that? What would happen? How would I feel if I stop saying that to my child, stop telling him how much I miss him, for example? What if I said, hey, it's so good to see you. You're there now. It looks like you had fun, rather than, I've missed you so much. I get so sad when you're away. Okay. Do you feel the difference in that? Just as one example. Do you feel the difference? A well-intended parent. Yeah. So, Martine, to finish answering your question, as soon as you start awakening, as soon as you start being conscious and aware, like you are, super aware, super conscious, and super fucking brave and willing to confront yourself and, swallow the tough pill, then you will, it's like you don't go from being codependent or enmeshed to not being. You'll follow the spectrum, as you say. You'll come out of it in different degrees. So you might be like, I've worked out that I've never had boundaries in my life. So now you're like, I'm going to start implementing boundaries. And you're bloody brilliant at implementing boundaries with friends and with colleagues and with new workplaces and with random people at the shopping center that want to have a go at you or something. And you're like, boom, there's a boundary. Boom, the school teacher, there's a boundary. I feel fucking great about that. Go to your mum and dad's house for dinner on Sunday. Fucking no boundaries, because that's the relationships where it all began, and that's the dynamic of that relationship. And you're always a child and you always want that closeness. So yes, to answer your question, it can be like a spectrum, and with some people you're fucking brilliant at it, and with other people you're like, I'm kind of got boundaries and kind of not. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. And other areas of your life you're like, I'm so enmeshed still. Yep. Oh, there you go, Carly. That's me. I only feel a sense of self when I'm alone. I'm only safe alone. And yeah, there you go. That's why. These are the people that need space. I get it. Yep. And then you attracted a narcissist, Carly. There you go. Yep. What about attracting someone weaker? Yep, very true, Martine. You absolutely can attract someone weaker or needy so that you can be in control. You can finally get what you never had. For the person who does that, like yourself, you have... you naturally have a quite a strong soul, quite a strong blueprint. Yeah, like wanting to be dependent. And then you go too far. You control them, you own them, you become a very masculine energy, those kind of things. Yeah. I'm going to redo the parenting program. Very good idea, Carly. I got a lot out the second time. Yeah, most people do. When you do the parenting program, some people have done it even 3 times. They're like, I feel like I never did it before. Because when you do it the second time, you are a different person. By the time you finish this program, there's like not one thing about you that's the same. Not the way you think, not the way you feel, not the way you see things. And so now when you go back and do it again and you hear everything through those new filters that you've got and the new experiences that are embedded all through your life from what you've already practiced from the first time, yeah, it will change everything. Cool. All right. I'm going to have to move on now. Oh, beautiful, Sarah. I'm so glad. Holly, I needed to hear every word of that. Oh, I'm so glad. Thanks, Hannah. Okay. Very good. So how do you work on it with yourselves, intimate part? It's all about authenticity, Carly. You're very much on that journey. Like, I mean, I don't know exactly where you're at right now, but, you know, obviously you came to Happy to Hold retreat twice and everyone said, far out, you are not even the same person as you were the first time, who sat in the back and, you know, didn't say much. And the second time you were teaching the room on masculine and feminine energy. I remember that. So it really is. That's why I say it's a process. It's who am I, and what are my thoughts, and what are my feelings. And when you think, oh no, this is my feeling, and then you might find out you're wrong. Oh, actually, fuck, it wasn't what I wish I didn't do that. I feel like now, in hindsight, I can see it wasn't actually my feeling. It was just me looking for approval or something. And just don't beat yourself up in those moments, okay? Because no matter what, you've still realized a piece of your authenticity, and it is a journey, and it's not something that will change overnight. And if it's not addressed until adulthood, chances are you'll always have to have an awareness of it. It will always creep back up. Your nervous system has been wired that way. Okay. I mean, there is a really good way to change it, but I'm not going to talk about that here. Okay, and there's a way you can change it fairly instantly, but yeah, we won't have that conversation here. Come to Purpose Retreat. We're gonna have that conversation. But I definitely have enmeshment trauma. Oh, very good, Saraya. Sorry, that's so brave of you. This is like your first time on the call, first, week in the program or whatever. Where do I start with working on enmeshment? Okay, let me say this, okay? For those of you who are like, this is really hit me, and you really want to be committed, if you want to work with me on your enmeshment trauma, the Happy to Whole retreat, okay? It's happening at the end of October. We do it every year. We only do it once a year. So if you miss this one, you wait a whole nother year, okay? The people who get the most phenomenal results that a lot of you have witnessed, in people like Nicole, for example, she's been very active lately, have done it twice, because again, the first time you do it as an absolute wounded self, and you only can take in what you allow in through the filters that you've used in your life up to there. After you've done it once and you've really sat with your wholeness and the idea of wholeness, and knowing how to sit with yourself, and we do some astral body work and some ancestral work. After you've had those kind of experiences, and then you come back to that experience, it's like it's not even the same retreat. Okay, so if you are really committed and you're willing to go to the inconvenience, right? Success in any area of life will never be convenient. If you're willing to let it be inconvenient, and to organize the kids, and to make the hard call, and leave them with babysitters and all, there's a price to pay. There's a price to pay either way. You don't come and do something like that, and the price you pay is living life the way you are. So the reason it's 3 days is so it can be an immersion experience. So you are intentionally removed from your life, so that you can immerse yourself, because on the first day you'll have your guards up, and your subconscious mind will be hearing things through the filters of your past experiences. The second day, you're cracked open, and we work for half a day on relationships specifically on that day. That afternoon is that's the biggest, it's like the pinnacle part of the entire weekend. It takes about 2.5 to 3 hours to do what's called astral body work. And that's where the astral body houses the lower part of the soul. It connects to the etherical body, which is the energy body. And then the etherical body connects to the physical body through the nervous system, which is why we get triggered the way that we do. Now, here's the thing. It also includes past life stuff. So your astral body in a past life becomes your etherical body in this life. Your etherical body now was your astral body in a past life. And so that's why we can work on intergenerational stuff. There's so much, okay? If you really want to do the work, and you don't want to take a year to do it, you're happy to throw yourself in the deep end and do it in 3 days, you'll make it 80% of the way there if you really, really surrender to that whole experience. Okay. So if you want to come and do that, then it's end of October. You know what? The two of you that just messaged me privately, I'm just going to put it up here publicly, okay? theholyeffect.com. You can just go to theholyeffect.com, but I'll give you the link anyway. And then click on retreats. And then it's happy. This one's called Happy to Whole. So the whole idea of that is it's not about living a life of happiness. And if you stop, chasing happiness is most of the reason we suffer. Because it's not about happiness, it's about wholeness. It's about being able to sit with the part of yourself that is not happy as deeply, and meet yourself in that space as just as deeply as you can meet yourself in your happiness. And if you can't do that, then you are continually betraying and abandoning yourself. Okay? So Yeah, Magda came twice. So thank you, Magda. It is very life-changing. All right. There's lots of things we do there that I can't tell you about as well. They're surprises for a reason. Okay. So look up the treats. There's 6-month payment plans. And it's all done in Adelaide. If you want to reach out to me privately, I'm more than happy to have a conversation like that with you all. Okay. Reach out to me privately. Message my private profile, not the company profile, not the Holly Effect. Just message me, like Holly Noonan, find my name in the page and message me there. We're going to go to the coaching call now. But yeah, reach out and we can have a private call just to make sure you are ready for what we do at that weekend as well. All right, everyone good? Nothing big for me to cover now? Let's go through these questions, huh?